Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Infrastructure and Development Select Committee. This meeting is being held in person and is also being streamed live on the County Council's YouTube channel and will be available afterwards for viewing. A fire alarm test is not expected, so if the alarm sounds, we need to leave out onto the car park where you'll be mustered into place, I think is the word. Nikki, have we any apologies?
Apologies received today from Councillor Martin Wilby, substituted by Councillor John Fisher, and Councillor Jim Moriarty. Councillor Graham Carpenter also sent his apologies.
Thank you. Members, minutes of the last meeting. Are we all content with the minutes? Agreed, thank you. Any declarations of interest? No. So I've got a couple of updates from the chair. So as part of our new committee arrangements that we're doing, we're responsible for our own work programme and have decided that some items are better suited to a briefing note rather than as a discussion at the committee and should be sent to a wider audience because the information that everybody needs, all the members need, and you've just had four, a lot this time, 4 to read: Greenways to Green Spaces update, Waste Service member briefing, winter preparedness and flood prevention activity, and winter preparedness, winter maintenance and gritting, and all members have received that. And as we go forward, we'll decide which of these papers that we'll have here and which we'll send out to all members. And I think it's a good thing that we give members information. And if you've got any questions on those things that come out, please just get back to the relevant officer and you'll get replies. We've not got any public questions. We've got no local member questions. So we're going to go into item number 7, Strategic and Financial Planning, 2026 to 2027. Andrew?
Thanks very much, Chair, and good morning to you, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So here we are we're now over the halfway stage. We've had 2 challenges with with spending departments, and then a further, which we call Budget 2.5, in order to elicit additional savings. And I'm just going to start with get a bit of background, perhaps, over the whole process, and then we'll talk more about specifically about those that interest your committee. But the savings, the overarching strategy of the administration of Norfolk County Council is to achieve these savings, and achieve them we must, because there isn't enough money coming from central government, through the effective value for money delivery of key services, not through the reduction of those services. And despite a backdrop of rising demand, economic uncertainty, we've so far I say, achieved these savings through smarter commissioning, through shared procurement, digital transformation, of course, and AI, but key and crucial part of this, and if any of you are in any of the other committees, service redesign. Transformation is becoming an increasingly important part of how we deliver the gap between what we need to spend and what we have to spend. So these measures are not about cuts. They're about value. They're about ensuring that every single pound that we spend delivers the maximum possible benefit. We can always do better, of course we can. But this approach is enabling us to absorb inflationary pressures and the growing demand whilst keeping the Council on a sustainable financial footing. I don't need to remind you that we, of course, have to balance our books unlike any other government entity, including the NHS. And a number of councils are finding that that true, the brutal truth is coming up against their hopeful rhetoric. So in particular, of course, there's a rising cost of adult social care and children's services, and you know, it's vital to always bear in mind why those financial pressures are so acute here in Norfolk. You know, the fact is, as you know, that in Norfolk County Council, over 2/3 of the total spend is accounted for by adults, social care and children's. These areas continue to rise sharply. That's driven by demographic change, as well as by the complexity of need and to some societal change, really, in the way we think about services. So that has sustained impact on inflation, particularly in the care markets. And in adult social care, in particular, you know, an aging population means that more residents require the provision of higher levels of support for longer. And, you know, providers face increasing costs for staff, increasing energy bills, increasing accommodation costs, all of which get passed on to councils. And, you know, we have, of course, been very active in constantly looking at ourselves and constantly looking at ways in which we can do things better. I mean, Connecting Communities is only one of a number of major initiatives which have delivered year-on-year savings, significant year-on savings for the council. And in children's services, too, demand for placements, special educational needs provision, and safeguarding all continue to grow. You've seen this in the papers. It's not a Norfolk thing. This is across the country. But these are all statutory duties, remember, that reflect our moral and legal responsibility to protect Norfolk's most valuable residents. Meanwhile, of course, the government's funding assumptions for local government effectively presume that Norfolk would increase council tax by the full 4.99% in 26-27. That includes, of course, the 2% adult social care preset. And this expectation is built directly into national forecasts of local authority spending power. So when we're told that our spending power increased by 1.1%, that actually assumes that Norfolk will put council tax up by 4.99%, because that accounts for over 50% of the total amount of revenue which we, Norfolk County Council, receives. The government, for some reason, misses that bit out when they talk about that. So there is an assumption, an underlying assumption, of course, which will shift the burden, and this will continue with this administration or this government, will shift the burden of maintaining these essential services and their statutory, I remind you, these statutory services onto local taxpayers, and you know, the core grants and other funding streams will, I think, remain effectively frozen in real terms. So, in truth, you know, it's an unfunded mandate. It's one that leaves the councils to absorb the financial consequences of national policy decisions without being given the resources to match. So, but you know, there's no point doing that. We crack on with that. And so, you know, you've seen recent reports as to how difficult it is for local councils to find savings. The stark reality is such that many councils are now at breaking point. You know, what we are doing, though, is long-term, prudent financial planning and an unwavering commitment for value for money. And I think that as a result, we have avoided the kind of emergency measures we are now seeing elsewhere. We have not had to resort to short-term cuts to balance the books. Instead, we have protected service levels, we have supported vulnerable people, and we continue to invest in Norfolk's future, all the while delivering a balanced budget and a robust budget for the future. The the key to this is really found in our medium-term financial strategy, and because that really illustrates that quite clearly. And it's always interesting, really, when one looks at what it is that we're consulting on as well, because, of course, a consultation needs to take place if there is a change in service. So if there's no change, we don't consult. And it's interesting, I think, noteworthy, that as of now, the consultation is all about the council tax. There are no service changes in this area. And I think that what we're looking at, therefore, is the results of the last 3 to 4 years of this administration moving towards multi-year transformational savings and new ways of doing things. And that is really how it is working, whether it's in the digital and automation programs, on back office functions that we've put through. That reduces administrative overheads, of course, smarter procurement, particularly in adult social care, but also transport contracts, rationalization of the property services, and early intervention. There's so much work been done for the last 2 or 3 years in children's services where demand is rising exponentially in order that we can keep the lights on, help families sooner, and therefore avoid higher cost placements later. So it's worth just having a look. Of course, bear with me because the page numbers always change. So I'm just going to nip onto page 27. One of the interesting things really here is to look at table 3. You're looking at some of the planned savings for future years, so that in 26-27 we need to make savings of around £62 million. However, there are already nearly £21 million baked into the assumptions of savings assumptions by spending departments, particularly adults and children's, as those transformation programs go ahead. And that, I think, is the way, the only way, in which we can deliver these services without having to make consistent cuts, because we're thinking short term. It's a holistic approach, and I commend senior staff here at Norfolk County Council for the fact that they've embraced this. I mean, I think, if I was honest with you, when I took on this job, I don't think anyone much worked for Norfolk County Council. I think everyone worked for adults or children's, highways, but I don't think that's the case now. I really believe that there has been a change in culture here, and that has helped us in making the sort of intra-departmental changes that we need to do. Lots to do, but we are doing. So having said all that, our job is made considerably more difficult by ongoing national uncertainty. The government has yet to publish the outcome of the SEND review. That's, of course, been kicked into the new year, or indeed to clarify the implications of the long-promised fair funding review. And these omissions make it difficult to plan with confidence for the years ahead. And equally, I'd say that the late timing of the autumn budget means that we are not privy to key details of the local government settlement, and because they won't be available to us probably till mid-December at the earliest. And that delays our ability to model funding scenarios and prepare that 26-27 budget, which, as I say, is required to be balanced by law. Such late announcements undermine the stability of councils and the need to manage resources effectively. I think that gives us a bit of a bit of a general overview. I would happy to take any questions, and specifically about the savings which relate to this particular committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. If I may, I just want to split things. So if we look up on the board at the moment, you can see, and it's anything INF. Those are the savings that we're going to make, and that's one thing I want to start with, to look at the savings that we've already identified, and then after that, the future risks. So if we talk at the moment about the savings, it's also in the paper, the savings that we are making, revised fees and charges, vacant posts, restructuring of property team, charging for external advice, and reserves, a use of reserves. So I think, Chrissy, were you going to ask a question about the first bit? Yeah. So Chrissy and then Rob.
Just to begin though, for some reason I didn't get the briefings, so I do apologise if I say anything that I should already know. But is there any possibility also that they can go in the minutes of the meeting so the public know what type of briefings we're getting so they get more informed about things? Or is that we can't use that information publicly?
Provide it in the minutes,
Yeah, we would certainly put it in the minutes. And one hopes that members, if there was something interesting, like I told somebody about winter preparedness gritting last night, and the naming of the gritting lorries. I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah. There are some amazing names in there. Gritty, gritty, bang, bang was my favourite. So yes, Chris.
Yeah, right, I'm going to try to stick to this bit a bit. Waste is, for example, recently we have become, like Malcross particularly has become like the fly tipping capital of Norwich, with trade waste and commercial waste more. And obviously that is then the responsibility of the district councils. And I was wondering whether we could work more together in this and think, and actually be thinking about why this may be. Are we charging too much? Is the slots causing issues? Because in the long run, it's not very economical, is it, if the blight is around communities and then have to get picked up anyway. It's not very economical or great in any way, really.
So you're raising the cost to
Yeah,
us.
so yes, it's the cost. Are we, like, for example, if you charge too much for something, then people stop using it so much. It is a wrong economical model, isn't it? Whereas if you charge less, you get more people actually recycling, because that's what we need. Could we look into that and look at the district councils and see how much more they are having to pick up? I have, like, Mondays is a bad day for me because that's usually the phone call times to say more, kitchens and everything have been there, so they couldn't get to the bins, and further problems escalate from there, which is a cost, isn't it? So I didn't know whether it's worth looking at is why are traders dumping more than they have done before, and why are shops dumping their commercial waste in communal bins? Because obviously we have big flats with a load of bin areas that people can get to, but it also means it's public. So I didn't know whether savings there, or whether we could review what we're doing there and cost less money in the long run, because it wouldn't be damaging the environment so much either. Obviously long term, not short term, hopefully if we get it right with the family hubs, it'll then mean that children actually get diagnosed earlier and get more help earlier, the early intervention. So long term, hopefully this will cost less money. Also with the health hubs and things like that, I'm hoping that long term it will cost us less money. But short term, it's got to be a great cost. And I think it might be wise with the waste and everything that's happening at the moment that we do actually go into reserves this year, possibly. But I just think that I look at things probably in a different way to other people because of the background I come from. And sometimes I see things slightly different to other people, and maybe it seems a bit wacky to anyone else. But also the money, just the last few weeks, Norwich particularly has been terrible because we've got roadworks coming from both ways, do you know what I mean? And it's been carnage for a few weeks now. Everyone, you can't get into Norwich, you can't get out of it. Could we have thought about that differently? Because obviously there's been people probably on the phone more, costing us more because staff at time has been taken up. Have there been any issues with carers getting to their service users because in time? Have we had any problems there? Everything in the end comes to financial issues, isn't there? Do you know what I mean? And I didn't know whether we could think a bit more about what we're doing sometimes, because I don't know how much problems that's caused the economy and people getting to work-wise. It probably has affected a lot of people at county as well, you know, work-wise. Could we be thinking more about that before we actually do it? I don't know. But I think in general, for this bit here, I can see the officers are putting a lot of hard work, and congratulations to the officers for putting so much hard work. I know I seem to be moaning all the time at officers. I'm not moaning really. I just want things done properly. And that's my job in a sense. But, you know, I can see there's been a lot of work done with finances for very little. And I know the government gave a bit of money towards potholing. Not enough, I realise. Hopefully we'll get some more this year.
So I think there's quite a lot in there, Chrissy, but I think the basis of it was, is it costing us more money to do things? So in terms of charging fees and things, do we put people off? And is that in our calculations, Andrew, or is it? I know we've had arguments about roadworks, but you know, roadworks are roadworks, they need to be done. And the planning of which. So Andrew, have you got any?
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Chrissy. I think that they're all really good points, and I'll take each one in turn. The first was really around waste, and you had, I think, 3 points on that. Could we work better with districts in order that, if you like, waste, dealing with waste and fly tipping become a single entity rather than two entities. And I would simply say that whether we are, of course, on track for unitary, and whether we have 1, 2, or 3, at least some of these ludicrous barriers which make our lives so inefficient and so difficult. It's critical there. It's more critical perhaps in adult social care and homelessness. There's a whole range of areas where I think there is a sunny upland in terms of moving towards unitary in some shape or form. We may differ on the number of councils, but the concept is I think, unarguable. The second point really is I guess, a little bit more subjective. You know, I would push back on the idea that charges make people heave a load of rubbish into the hedge. I'm not sure that is the main. You cited trade waste in particular, and I think there's a whole range of issues why traders are finding it difficult. But I'm not certain that I would necessarily agree that our system or our booking system is a consequence to that. I mean, the fact is, most the booking system was introduced with a normal sort of outrage, but the fact is that since it's come into place, 2/3 of users rate it because it's easier than on you go. So, I think that your first point, can we work better with districts, is a really valid one, because I think the thing should be holistic. But why they're doing it, I'm not sure I would go with you on that one. Long-term interventions. You've hit a really, really important point, Chrissy, and that is this, is that a lot of those transformation programs that I mentioned earlier on, all right, are indeed preventative. They are long-term in nature. Now, the problem with those is that they're not necessarily statutory. All right, so when people come and say, right, we're going to cut, it's normally there, and indeed a lot of the things within your committee's purview, because a lot of those aren't statutory too. But it is normally, the preventative stuff which will go, and that for the, not just the long, but the medium term is really damaging. So, that is why I am glad that we started this whole process a few years ago, and indeed earlier than I think some other councils. And whilst this isn't easy, and you're feeling, the EDs, feeling they're running as fast as they can with a wave behind them. It's not easy, but I think there is a collective will to try to get those prevention programs in place, which are not necessarily statutory, but which will deliver savings in the future and will, more crucially, maintain services. On the roadworks, I mean, I guess we have to have road. I mean, I'm going to make the normal thing about, oh, well, it's 70% of the utilities and we can't do anything about it. And we've got a Department of Transport committee to look at it. The Department of Transport committee in Westminster agreed that something should be done, and this government has not as yet acted on it. Indeed, they've said they wouldn't. But so we've got that. So, but I'm going to leave that trope behind and just focus on the main point. Really, I mean, why are we doing roadworks? The other 30%, it is to get people about quicker. And I couldn't agree more. I'm having to dodge and weave. As I come over from Hunstanton most days, it's a trek. But, we need to do it, I guess. And ultimately, the aim will be for us all to be able to whiz around Norfolk more efficiently. So, I guess we just have to suck it up. Well, yes, I was meaning across the county overall rather than specific areas. But that would be, the ultimate aim is to improve the getting about. We may have had differences on the Norwich Western Link, for example, but that would, we won't go there, but that would have got, would move people about. Thank you.
Andrew, just for clarity, the clearing of this fly tipping, that's on the budget of the district council. That's not on our budget that we're discussing today. So that's something there. And I agree with you, when we get to unitary, there'll be more. Rob, sorry for a long time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, no, I just wanted to just clarify some things, first of all, that Councillor Jameson said, just especially for those people at home, and make sure that I've understood this correctly. So I think what we're only being asked to do as a committee is look at £2.2 million worth of savings from an overall savings budget required of some 35.75 million, and that represents a very small amount of the overall savings. I think it's about 6% that we as a committee are being asked to look at. But when you actually consider about what we expected this time last year, I think the point that Councillor Jameson was making on page 27 there was that in reality we're having to increase those savings for the infrastructure budget by a further 50%. So it's quite a significant additional amount of savings. So what I'm really interested in is to look at the proposals in detail, because we haven't had any detail really. We've just been given numbers through 1 to 6. So I was hoping that Councillor Jameson or the team there might be able to dig a bit deeper into some of this, so that we as councillors can make an informed decision today about whether or not we can support this and put our name to it. So for example, INF 002, deletion of vacant posts across the department to achieve savings. We're looking about £100,000. Well, £100,000 is there. How many jobs does this equate to, for example? And I'm just wondering about, is there some job amalgamation going on already? What have we looked at the impact that this will have on the staff that are having to maybe cover for colleagues that have left, that their jobs haven't been found? And I guess linked to that is part 3, property team staff restructure. We've got a £50,000 worth of savings to be made there. So I'm just wondering, what does that mean in reality? What does it mean on the ground, please? What impact does that have on the current staff? Are teams going to be moved? Are certain offices or bases? It would be really helpful to have some detail, please. And there are some other points, but I'll pause there.
So what we asked Andrew is those savings we've got, just for a little bit more detail if we can. And maybe you have to come back to us with
Yeah,
that.
I may well, but let me make a stab at that, Rob, and see whether that'll be enough. The the deletion of vacant posts. I'll just bring you back to perhaps a conversation which we might have had at this committee or elsewhere of a system of what we call here enhanced financial control. Now, about over a year ago, last sort of June 24, I put in a system of enhanced financial control, which meant that the finance department does have increased influence in the budgets and the maintenance of budgets of the spending departments. This is just to keep the show on the road and to keep us as efficient and effective as possible. And so this saving, the deletion of posts, is a saving which we've done. We actually did before enhanced financial control came on, and each time a vacancy materializes, then senior management, and I'm sure Graham will amplify this a bit, but the concept is, rather than just fill a post again, every time a vacancy opposes, we have a conversation about, is this person needed in the same way? Can we do it better? Has technology changed to enable us to make better decisions? And so it's a granular approach to employment that really is allowing Graham and his team to deliver savings if he feels that recruitment is not necessarily at this time, and so it can possibly be deleted or possibly just delayed. And I think that covers that. You mentioned the number 3 too, and was it number 3? Income generate. What was it? Sorry. It's the property
team staff.
the property team. Yeah. Okay. So that was specifically a saving. There's a senior post, and to the point I was rather making before, I think that the team there felt that post was not necessary at that grade, by just facilitating a change of leadership and the way in which that department was run, they could make the saving while still maintaining continuity of service. I think that would you like to add anything to that?
Graham's got, but what's interesting is this isn't a knee-jerk reaction just for the budget. This is a moving feast. This is happening all the time, and any post that comes up is looked at carefully. Do we need it? Do we need to change it? Whatever it is. So it's something that's live going on, and in that year it counts obviously towards our budget. But Graham, you can solve all this.
Thank you very much, and thank you both councillors for your answers just then. You've covered what we do on a day-to-day basis. So we are always reviewing posts, and as and when vacancies come up, we review those posts. The only other bit that I'll add to the answers is around the funding source, because that's key for our infrastructure teams, because a lot of our funding comes from external sources, so mainly Department for Transport, DEFRA, other government departments. So the other thought process whenever there's vacancies and ongoing is how is it best to fund this post with new funding sources and identified, and we're expecting some government announcements soon which will create new capital funding sources. It will be, right, well, with our existing staff revenue costs, how best can we use those resources to deliver whatever the next government initiative is. So we're constantly looking at the funding sources as well, and that can give rise to revenue savings and also contribute to our overall sort of fee income overall, which is why you've got the proposal as INF 001 in there as well. So hopefully that helps.
Rob, you okay with that?
Yes, I have a couple of other points, if I may.
You may.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to INF 005, which is the one-off use of waste reserves, I appreciate that we have read in the papers that the new bookings system, although several months in, is still relatively new, and it's maybe difficult to assess the wider impact upon fly tipping that many in our community are reporting to us that they see more regularly. But I just wondered, is it too soon to be using these waste reserves? How much waste reserves do we have left? And should we not be waiting until we know the true outcome of the booking system?
The true outcome? How many years have we? No. Graham, can you answer that?
I'll start off, and then Graham will probably give you the right answer later. I think we have. I also think we have begun to see the true outcome, if you like. I mean, as I mentioned to you, and obviously I'm a county councillor as well, and my mailbox fills up with outrage about the booking system and the changes and so on, just like yours. But I think, to be honest with you, and perhaps I have more reason to want to push back on it, that's all died down now. And so I think that we can, I genuinely think that we can say that the booking system is working. Now, there is an issue. Okay, Rob, and it's one which I think that it works really well around Norwich. Chrissy will disagree, but I think that by and large it's working well in areas where there's a lot of demand. I still get outrages from the users of the docking waste recycling. Why do I have to have a booking when I can see there's no one? Blah, 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 blah. But by and large, it works. Now, the other thing, though, that maybe Graham will, but we've got to, I think, continue to work on is the trade waste issue. The places where people can come and easily dispose of their waste, either trade waste or hazardous waste products and so on and so forth. And that's why we put in 2 extra hazardous waste days last year, and that worked. But I think that's something that we are continuing to work on, isn't it, Graham? Would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, thank you. And in terms of the question around the use of the waste reserves, again, that's been carefully thought on with the information that we've got so far, because the booking system is not just coming up for being in use for a year. And like it's been highlighted, that's helped level out the demand, and certainly hazardous waste days, the feedback that we got from people visiting the recycling centres to deposit their hazardous waste was that it was a lot more sort of a calmer because we've previously seen huge amounts of demands on those days, which we've not been able to control as such. So you've had queues of vehicles extending back out onto the network, which is something we always try to avoid, and had to have traffic marshals to prevent, to ensure highway safety. So the booking system has helped manage that demand. At the moment, the proposal around the use of reserves is taking account of the information we've got so far after the X months of the booking system being in place, and that figure that's in front of you is what we are confident that we'll be able to release from the reserves, but still also have reserves in case there are any changes going forwards. But on the best information we've got at the moment, that's a sensible and prudent figure that we can release. Thank you.
So I've got Catherine next, please. Oh, sorry.
A quick additional point on reserves, because obviously I mean, Chris is quite beadily noted reserves already. It is an area, and obviously the reserves position is quoted in our finance monitoring report every month. And, you know, with we've got forecast 180 million of reserves, you think, oh, we don't need that. But these are, of course, a lot of them are, a vast majority of them are earmarked reserves, which are coming in and will be used. You know, we can unpack that if you like. But you know, there's 47.5 million of infrastructure reserves in the monitoring report. As you need to have a look at that. You know, we can, if you send me an email, happy to unpack that for you. But it's not like sitting there under my chair. You know, it is by and large used. It is earmarked. They are earmarked reserves. So I just wanted to make that point. Oh, and also 180 million sounds a lot, but that's probably about 2 weeks adult social care spending.
Catherine. Can you do your microphone, Catherine? Sorry.
I wanted to start again on the deletion of vacant posts, and I understand from, you know, what we've been hearing so far that this is more strategic than it sounds. But it still seems as if the way it's expressed there makes it sound as if it's some kind of a hiring freeze, and that any posts that happen randomly to become vacant or that you haven't been able to fill, those get lost, regardless of the effect on other staff and on services and so on. So I guess I'm asking in a way for either more detail on which things are actually foreseen to be going, because presumably in order to have a number on this, we have some idea of which ones you actually think will be it will be possible to do without, and what the strategy is to make sure that those posts, when deleted, are going to be in some way integrated into some better service that will result from restructuring. So obviously you use different terms for 003, the property team staff restructure. The deletion of vacant posts sounds random, and maybe it would be better expressed as something like reconsideration of staffing arrangements where posts become vacant or something like that. So rationalisation is really what's intended, as I understand it, but we kind of need to be assured that it's going to be helpful and not harmful to how we go forward. So that's my first question. I've got a couple of other things I'd like to ask.
I think you make a good point about wording. Sometimes these things look fairly stark and they hide the real meaning of what's happened. So I hope you've been assured about this ongoing process. This is not just a bunch of people that have been moved. This is an ongoing process every time it comes up. Then because we have Andrew's new rule, finance rules everything, that this is looked at very carefully all the time. Do you want to make any comments, Graham?
Yeah, I was just going to comment that we've had this sort of similar proposal, exact same wording. I think sometimes the number's been a bit larger for the last 2-3 financial years. So hopefully that gives the committee some reassurance that, yeah, it's not random. It is very much thought through. And obviously a lot of the infrastructure teams, especially the waste, the transport and the highways elements, are in frontline service delivery. So yeah, it's not just a freeze or anything, because there are key roles that we've got, which I say key frontline service roles that we would not not recruit to. So it is very much assessed on a case-by-case basis. And we're confident that, given we've delivered this over the last few financial years, that the 100k proposed saving here is realistic and achievable over the next 12 months.
Do you want to come back, Kristen?
Should I do the other questions?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, okay. So I understand that one of the reasons why we are confident that we can use off the one-off waste reserves spend is that there's been a reduction in waste, partly due to recycling, and I guess we also expect that the new government rules on making the polluter pay, as it were, will help with reductions in how much waste is going into bins and being collected. And that makes me wonder whether there are additional things that we could do in terms of consumer education on waste to slim the bins even more and cut the amount of waste that is being produced, and not just wait for government initiatives to help us to do that. So that would be a question about sort of strategic investment in consumer education.
And if I can come in on that, hopefully the report that was circulated to committee members, just over a week ago, on the waste services briefing, hopefully that's got some really helpful context within that, because it's fair to say that overall, in terms of waste and recycling volumes entering the system, there is a general slight reduction, which is a really positive trend, which is for a whole host of reasons, whether it's manufacturers actually reducing the amount of waste or recycling packaging on products. That's all helping in terms of the overall tonnages that we're having to deal with. And we obviously deal with that as the Norfolk Waste Partnership, so as well as us as the County Council, all of our district and borough and city council colleagues as well. So we're sort of managing and delivering the whole waste piece on a county-wide basis. And as part of that, there's a number of initiatives which we and our district and borough colleagues are working on. So I'll just hand over to Kate, who's our head of waste, just to outline some of those initiatives, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think you've got a really good point that the biggest cost to us is the amount of waste that people put into the rubbish bin at home. So the sort of investment in services like the recycling, as a partnership with the district councils, we're working on food waste reduction, and we're hoping to see the introduction of household collections for food waste next year. A home composting programme supporting brown bins as well at the curbside. And various projects on reusing containers and making sure people throw away as little as possible. But that is the key to reducing our costs, is to getting more and more out of the waste bin, which the government have recognised as well with the initiatives through simpler recycling. But the report's outlining some of those projects. So if you have any further questions, please ask.
And forgive me for repeating it, but I always say members are also part of that communication process and should be telling their parish councils and informing them, get them to inform their residents. And I know on the food waste, because a lot of the food waste goes into the black bin and shouldn't, there are certainly South Norfolk at the moment have got a big plan on, and they've already started on commercial food waste, and they're now I can't remember, the buckets will be arriving in residents' homes very shortly to get food waste recycling as well. Did you have any more, Catherine?
Yes, but just on that, I have noticed in my parishes a very widespread tendency to say, oh, we don't need food waste recycling in the country. We have composting, you know, we have compost heaps. And I think that really we need some quite considerable education about what food recycling, you know, how much food waste goes into black bins at the moment, the way in which in housing estates and so on, it's not actually so easy as these parish councillors think to do the composting. And in any case, a lot of them don't seem to understand that the food waste will include the bones and the meat and the cooked food and so on that you don't put on your compost heap. So I think there's a lot of scope there that South Norfolk still needs to get right, but that's not really for us. What I wanted to do now was just something about the highways. So I appreciate Councillor Jameson has said that we want to be able to run around quickly and that the roadworks are to make us able to run around quickly. But a couple of things seem to me to be need attention. One is the damage to businesses from the roadworks, including from the utilities. And I feel that even if we have some penalties for overrunning roadworks and so on that come to the council, there isn't sufficient compensation for businesses that are badly affected by utilities and the energy schemes and so on, carving up the roads and closing them and delaying people and so on. So I'd like to know a bit more about penalties and how we can get some kind of recompense both for the council and also for the businesses. And also, it does seem to me that if we have congestion problems that we're trying to alleviate, we should be focusing not so much on building more roads as on trying to work out what it would be to make it easier for people to live near to where they need to be rather than have to drive miles and miles, or else to provide really efficient transport systems that would cut the number of cars on the road rather than keep building more roads.
So then you've gone into local planning authorities there at the end, Catherine. But I've seen some figures recently on the penalties that we've charged.
Apologies, Chair. Shall I make a start, and then you take over? Because I think there were some really interesting points there. And the first point, really on composting, I do remember probably before your time, Catherine, we had a good policy on promoting composting. Do you remember we had subsidised compost bins and so on and so forth? And, I think it's an action possibly from the committee that to take to Cabinet as to do that again, to promote, because I think, I would, in defence of your South Norfolk constituents, they can only do what they can do in their area, and I think they're doing the right thing in their area, and I think that we could perhaps assist that on that side. Damages to businesses, it's an interesting point you brought up. I think that was one of the things that we asked the Department for Transport to opine on in their select committee, and they did, and they agreed, and then it was roundly ignored. So we are where we are on that, but I would love the utilities to take greater responsibility on that. The alleviation of traffic, well, that's what makes politics interesting, because we all have a divergence of views as to how to remedy what we regard as a common problem.
Graham?
Thank you. And just to highlight, in terms of the composting initiatives, again, the report we've circulated is getting quite a number of plugs, which is really helpful. So I'd encourage everyone to have a look at that report, because I think a section 4.1.4 within that report has got a section all on composting and the initiatives that we as the County Council, through the Norfolk Waste Partnership, are sort of progressing, and the initiatives that are out there to try and encourage the volume composted material. It's probably worth highlighting as well, and I'm looking at Kate to make sure I get my facts right, but I think the government has announced from 2026 onwards food waste collection is mandatory across the country. So in terms of that, good to hear that South Norfolk are rolling out or expanding their food waste collection scheme. But yeah, all waste collection authorities, so all of the district boroughs and the city council, are supposed to have food waste collection schemes up and running by 2026, April, which is not very far away. Just in terms of the traffic side of things, and congestion and roadworks, it is a huge challenge, especially at the moment. Everyone's aware that National Highways are delivering 3 major trunk road improvement schemes in Norfolk at the moment, which is a huge amount of investment into Norfolk, which is really positive. And we've obviously been campaigning for those improvements for many years. Obviously, Thickthorn works over the last couple of weeks have caused a significant amount of congestion and challenges on the network. What we're doing as the County Council, because those works are National Highways works, we're looking to see what other changes we can make to any programmed works over the coming months. The challenge we've got is we're only responsible for just over a quarter of the works on the network. Utility companies and developers are responsible for the other 3/4 of works on the network. And just to put that into individual works, it's between 40 and 50,000 sets of road works and street works happening on the Norfolk network each and every year, which is a phenomenal amount of work. And that work is a mixture. I think there's about 6,000 or 7,000, typically 6,000 or 7,000 sets of emergency works from utilities each and every year as well. So they're things like what happened a day or two ago on the A143, which caused the A143 to have to be closed. Gas leak. So obviously the safety concerns around that were so significant we had to close an A road with no notice at all. So it's challenges like that we're having to try and deal with day in, day out. And as I say, the numbers, the demands and the pressure on the network are phenomenal, especially at this moment in time. The other bit I'll just add to that is, as the County Council, as I say, only about a quarter of the works that you see out there are ours. But what we've done, especially this year, given that challenge on the network, in terms of the forward planning, in terms of the network management, we've done as much of our work at night as possible. Now, that's cost us as the County Council more to do those works at night. And it's a challenge because if there are local residents, we've got to be really mindful of that because nobody wants to be disturbed at night either. But obviously the network itself is so much quieter at night. So we've done as much work as possible at night, which has helped relieve some of the pressure as much as we can. But as we all know, it is really challenging at the moment, just given the amount of work and investment programs that are out there from a variety of sources.
And I think the large part is fibre and using their utility 24-hour rule, which I don't know whether we could ever change that. The one silver lining in that, once that network is in, the fibre network is in, they won't be back. Anglian Water will be back and other people, but with the fibre, it should calm down a lot. Can I go to John? You've been waiting patiently, John.
Thank you, Chairman. In fact, the question, one of the questions I was going to ask has been answered quite fully, which was regarding the one-off waste and highway reserves, and hence, from that point of view, I would like to suggest that we, as a committee, approve or agree with those points made on page 15, 16. But I will just make a couple of supporting statements, as there's been some discussion on waste and recycling. Certainly, my experience in the past as part of Norfolk Waste Partnership and also Broadland, fly tipping is not a result of the odd person deciding it's too expensive to go to the tip. The bulk of fly tipping is from white van man who has no respect for Norfolk and the Norfolk countryside, and that's where the issue lies. So if there's money to be saved, then I support that particular issue. Mention has been made of food waste as well, which, yeah, Broadland have been doing that since 2008, and gradually rolled it out across the whole district successfully. And I'm amazed that some of the other councils in Norfolk haven't done that, and are now finding it difficult because the government have stipulated they've got to be done by April, and they really need to get that acts together. But from a point of view of the booking system, again, I think the booking system works excellent. It does in other areas of the country that I meet as well. Over in Gloucestershire, where I visit, they have a booking system, and it works very well. I maybe shouldn't say this, but when I was at one of the recycling centres the other day, there was a person came in who hadn't been aware of the system, and the staff, because they were not busy, were very flexible and accepted that particular person into the regime without a booking. So I've witnessed our staff being very, very flexible, and I really can't see that's got anything to do with fly tipping. While there was mention made of local government review and the fact that the waste collection authorities will be reformed in some way or another, whether it's 1, 2, 3 or 4 unitaries. But I would like to urge our officers that while LGR is progressing, the obvious result of any waste system within Norfolk should be a unitary waste authority. Whether we use LGR as an excuse to rehash this, but there are savings to be made. Now all the local government review and local government is actually being looked at. Now's the time to move, Kate. Now's the time to move to a unitary waste authority for Norfolk, and we will see the savings. So whatever happens to LGR, let's have in our mind a single waste authority for Norfolk.
So that'll be a question at full council that you're going to raise. Councillor, yeah.
We'll wait to see what happens, because if we go for a single unitary, then that will be hand in hand with it.
Right. Rob, one quick one, because I want
It
to
will be
move
quick.
on to
Thank
the
you.
risks.
Yes, no. So of those 2.2 million savings required within our area, 1 million, a large chunk of that is with regards to additional income associated to fees and charges. So what I wanted just to explore, obviously it's always strange seeing it on a spreadsheet as a minus figure, when in fact what reality is happening is that the charges that we will be charging residents in Norfolk are going up. And obviously we're in a cost of living crisis at the moment, and I'd want to be certain that if we are being asked to rubber stamp this, we need to know what that impact is going to be on our residents. So I haven't seen any document with regards to these increased fees and charges. I'm wondering if it affects more people in the commercial sector rather than residents, but still it would be useful to have some idea, or maybe even have, ideally, and unfortunately it would have been better to have maybe had that circulated beforehand. But yes, if some information could be provided, that would be very useful.
Andrew, this is out for consultation, isn't it?
No, it's not. No, we're okay. But we can probably get into the detail, right? That's absolutely fine. But I just want to assure you that these aren't fees and charges which will impact some of the most vulnerable people in our community. It's essentially, fines, increasing fines for utilities for overrunning, for example, would be one, and I don't think any of us would argue about that. They would include things like design fee recharges for property developers and so forth. There's fees on the recycling centre. There's fees for skip licenses, permits. I mean, these TROs. These are all, they're tending to be. One might not like TR and the cost to a parish, but they're not things which will impact service delivery on adult social care and children's services. But we can get you a list, I'm sure, Graham, can't we? Yeah.
So what I want to do now is skip to the second part. We've got risks coming up. We've got government risks as well. And have we any questions about that second part, about the risk we face? David.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, just if I may quickly go back to the first part, again on to reserves. The one-off use of reserves, obviously once they've been utilised, as the line says, they're gone forever. But am I not right in thinking that use of reserves like this is a release of funds? It's not actually an underlying saving.
So it would be a saving in an in-year, one-year saving, which of course would have to be reversed next year.
So the risk facing us, have members got any questions about that? I mean, the one I want to add in, we've mentioned sorts of people. We have this new person starting on May the 7th next year called the Mayor. And he takes up his post and all his strategic things. Do we have to worry in doing our plan about what the Mayor might do? Or do we ignore him? Sorry, ignore them, not sorry.
No, I don't think, I wouldn't be advocating ignoring. I think we're working with. But I think that at the minute, or at we are clear from a top-down point of view of what it is that the Mayor will do. And so we just start with some of the key points and then think how we interrelate with that. I mean, I think there's still a lot of work going on, how we interrelate with that. I'll give you some examples in a moment. But if we start perhaps with the most eye-catching, for want of a better word, advantage of a mayor for the combined authority of Norfolk and Suffolk, it'll be the investment fund, £37.5 million a year, guaranteed for 30 years. That's £1.2 billion coming into Norfolk and Suffolk for infrastructural investment. And I think that is an enormous advantage that we will have along with other unitaries, because I'd want to make it very clear to members that we've been losing out consistently to other parts of the world. The fact of the matter is that those areas that have already adopted unitary, those areas that already have mayors, have been recipients of the vast majority of infrastructural spend, and county councils have been left squabbling over crumbs. That 37, of course, one would wish it was a great deal more, but I think, you can see what's happened in the northeast, you can see what's happened in Manchester, their ability to gear up. I don't mean to borrow against them, I just mean to lever in funds from the private sector, lever in additional government funding has been significant. So I would be expecting, once that fund was up and running, something closer to 100 million a year rather than 37. So that is a significant amount of money to come in to facilitate projects here in Norfolk. And we have already been working alongside our district colleagues, as we always do, in order to come with a list of, awful word coming up here, shovel-ready projects to put on the mayor's desk of whatever colour their rosette may be. There will be a significant number of major projects. And I was in House of Commons yesterday, in Portcullis House yesterday, with 6 of our 8.5 MPs, and that it was a really constructive meeting, actually. It really was. We had, from all across the political spectrum, but there wasn't, there was an understanding that MPs need to get behind these projects as well. and so that we can get on and make sure that the mayor will deliver them for Norfolk. Not just, you know, the projects, we've got a great long list from the Borough Council, Kings Lynn, so on and so forth, but not just, you know, it's back to the Ely Junction, back to Hawley Junction. These are key infrastructure projects which we wouldn't have a prayer of delivering without this fund. So that is a key area. So other areas where we'll be working closely with the new mayor and his team, obviously on. You're absolutely right, and I would very much stand rebuked on that. The way we'll be working with the mayor and her team will be on adult education, for example. Now, adult education was something which we wanted to bring in under the previous county deal, which was shot by the new, which we got through, but unfortunately hadn't really got out the door. But here it is again, 32 million a year. Now, you might remember from last time, we did, the adult education was delivered in Norfolk, fine, but we didn't know how it was delivered, we didn't know who was delivering it, and we found out that 70% of the people who were delivering it weren't in Norfolk. So, you know, we've now got a fund which would be for Norfolk and Suffolk. Everything that I'm saying about Norfolk relates obviously to Norfolk and Suffolk. We've got that fund coming in, and I think, you know, it's one of the reasons why anybody in the educational world who I've been talking to, whether the College of West Anglia, whether the NUA, whether it's UEA, are all incredibly supportive of devolution, is that they can see how education will receive an additional funding and additional coherence and cohesion as a result of that. The mayor will also have responsibility, strategic responsibility for highways. And, you know, the actual interrelation of that and the operative side, you know, will need to be detailed and hasn't been detailed yet. You know, I can give you one example, perhaps, is that she will have responsibility for bus transport, and yet, which is great, but how does that fit in with a unitary's responsibility in relation to home to school transport? So there are many areas, okay, and that's just one of them, where we would need to have further. You know, the spatial delivery of housing is something which I don't immediately grasp the concept of, but you know, that is you know, a responsibility of the mayor. And again, how we tie that in is still the subject of further work. Is there anything else, Graham, that you'd
risk appraisal for the next couple of months? The things that we've got a budget, we've got the finance from government.
Yep.
The risk that we face
okay.
in the next couple of months before we get to our January date.
To cut the chase, we've made, you know, I think I mentioned about 62 million of savings. You know, we're up over 35 million to date. That significant savings still need to be made. I mentioned to you that we are currently working on a budget of 2.9%. So you know, each 1% of increase in council tax is very nearly 6 million now. So there's a saving there. We've just gone through budget 2.5, and budget 3 is now underway as well, where we're looking at ways in which we can, without busting the system, look at fast turbocharging some of those transformation schemes. So you know, I'm sort of feeling reasonably okay. The next area, though, will be the policy statement that will come either before, at, or just after the budget, which will give us a pretty good steer on whether the assumptions made by the CCN, the County Council Network, in the summer are kind of correct for Norfolk, or whether other areas at the minute, the original workings that we were given, or government gave out, would have given the inner London areas in particular, but some metropolitan areas are more difficult time, and I wonder whether that will survive the rigours of political debate. We will wait to hear from the policy statement, but more particularly the local authority provisional settlement, which will not come, we don't think, until either the middle or even late December. So maybe in that final week of December, 22nd of December, which does not give us a great deal of time. So if one was looking at risks, I would be saying that the way in which what is, after all, a gross budget of 2 billion is put together with so much uncertainty, and this is not from this administration, this has been the case for some time, doesn't make the work of officers any easier. So the key risks are, is the settlement, provisional settlement, going to be worse than that anticipated by the CCN and by our officers? There's also all the obvious ones, that I think are listed here in terms of risks, the various pressures. Is inflationary pressure going to be worse than we are anticipating? And it's certainly, it is being, it's clear that inflation is being stickier, to use the government phrase, than we had hoped. And of course, there's considerable demand and demographic pressures that I alluded to before, particularly in children's services and also adults' social care and learning, and children and adults with learning difficulties that we are having to deal with. Those pressures there are areas where the new DAS is really focused on and working hard to deliver those savings, those necessary savings, whilst not impacting on overall care. But that is also a risk. So there is a risk to the speed at which those transformation programs can be delivered effectively, so that we can continue to balance our books. I think that's enough risks, frankly.
But we're all in that boat, aren't we? Any more on that? Because we've had a good discussion. I want to go to the recommendations, if that's okay with everybody. So we've considered the budget in the medium term. We've considered and commented on the saving proposals. We did quite a lot of that. Noted the budget gap. The 3A and 3B. If you have any initiatives that you think would work, could you send them straight to Andrew Jameson, please? Save us time now. And activities that we could cease that we don't need. I haven't got any in my head at the moment, but if you do come up with them, Andrew's in the house every day. So members agreed that we've covered all those points? Yeah, thank you. So thank you, Andrew, for all your time.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee. Thanks.
So we're going to go into number 8. A couple of things I want to say as the chair. One, firstly, this was a motion laid down by one of our members, our vice chairman, Chris, all those years ago. It seems quite a long time, and thank you, Chris, for doing that and chasing it. To the members and the officers who've worked on this report, it is just amazing. I was a bit of a dinosaur and a Luddite on this because I thought the elephant had left the room, but I've been amazed in reading this, how much more information that I've learned and taken on, and some of the things that we might be able to do. So, Roberta, are you going to introduce?
Yes, Chair, happy to introduce the paper, and thank you to Councillor Carpenter, who's not here today, for all the work that he has supported in the task and finish group. So just for a bit of context and background, Norfolk County Council's Infrastructure and Development Committee established a task and finish group to explore the importance and accessibility of cash in Norfolk. This was in response to a motion at full council reflecting on the concerns about the decline in cash usage
and access and its implications, importantly in terms of financial inclusion. So we don't want people to be excluded by not being able to access cash. In order to start this process, the group undertook a comprehensive investigation to produce a report, and that report you'll find in Appendix A of this paper. The report drew on a number of areas of evidence, such as policy and legislative review, for example, national frameworks and ESO, that's the UK's largest ATM network. And this included statistics for a decline in ATM numbers across Norfolk, reduction in cash transactions and withdrawal values, and also mapping of cash access points across Norfolk, so ATMs, post offices, banking hubs, and cash at till locations. We looked at coverage statistics as well in terms of where Norfolk residents live, so 83.8% of Norfolk residents live within 1 mile of a free cash access point, and 98.6% within 3 miles. We also invited Mark Eldridge to meet with the Task and Finish group, and he provided expert comment in terms of establishing access to banking facilities working with stores, so how that is integrated. And also Gail Harvey, who runs our Tech Skills for Life programme. And more importantly, we also distributed a survey, and we had an absolutely excellent response to this survey. So 747 responses in total, and that included both residents across Norfolk and businesses as well. And that qualitative insight provided us with a number of areas of data, but including residents, 74% of those felt that they used cash often or very often, and businesses reported that 69% of them handle cash quite regularly, and 76% of those expressed a concern about a cashless society or a transition towards. So key findings from our research report included that cash remains vital for a number of cohorts, including our older residents, people with disabilities, those on low incomes who prefer cash for budgeting, and also those who are at risk of digital exclusion and don't necessarily have access to banking apps in order to manage their finances. We also found findings around post offices and banking hubs, and actually we only currently have 4 banking hubs across Norfolk. There are plans to expand this, but actually if a high street has a bank, then we aren't able to introduce a banking hub, and that's a failure of the current government legislation. And that post offices are more evenly distributed across Norfolk than banks, and actually provide us with a really important point of access for banking facilities. We found about 24% of adults are at risk of digital exclusion within Norfolk, and this is presenting a barrier to access to banking facilities if they aren't able to use online services. There was also a concern around security, privacy and budgeting. For some individuals, cash is seen as a safer option and more tangible for managing finances, and for others there are concerns around fraud and scams and loss of financial control with digital methods. And just in addition to the report that was attached to the appendices, we also participated in a radio interview this morning. So Councillor Eagle, you may have heard on Radio Norfolk this morning, was discussing this report and taking phone-ins. Another piece of insight that came in from those phone calls were a number of callers saying that actually cash is good for school children as well. So actually the experience of handling cash in order to manage budgets. So just to come to the recommendations of this report, we have recommended 3 main areas. So firstly, a letter to the relevant government minister outlining the importance for cash in Norfolk and how government should support its continued use. This could include lobbying for all banks to provide a trusted person or a carrier card, relaxing the eligibility criteria for banking hubs so that more communities can benefit from their presence, as well as increasing and standardising deposits and withdrawal limits and a range of scope of services. So that was the first area, a letter to the relevant minister. The second area of recommendations includes considering how schemes such as Norfolk County Council's very successful High Streets Matter programme could support retailers who are reliant on cash. And the third area is to continue to seek external funding to expand Norfolk County Council's very successful Tech Skills for Life programme that really helps us to address that area of digital exclusion and support residents to adopt new digital skills. And I'll stop there and happy for me and my colleague Paul Mace, who's also worked very heavily on this report, to take any questions.
Over to you, members. Who's going to be the first one? I expect it should be, yes, Chris.
Before you come to me, I thought I'll volunteer, Chair. Yeah, very, very appreciative to colleagues who allowed me to bring this motion forward in the first instance, and grateful to the whole chamber, really, for the support. I have to add as well, not just a thank you to the officer team, but I've got to say thank you to our Radio Norfolk and the EDP, and even the Bishop of Norwich, who managed to chime in on this one, which was greatly appreciated. And I think that probably has led to the response to the consultation, or the high level, successful level of the consultation response. At that point, I had no idea we'd end up with such a comprehensive and detailed examination into to cash. Principally for me, representing a rural area, my first thoughts were, you know, it's the coin of the realm. We need to protect that. There's so much under challenge in our way of life today. I think that's symbolic of our Britishness. We managed to fight off the fact that we'd end up with euro in our pocket. We've still got the pound sterling. And I think that was a very important thing, I think, to many people. But certainly sort of narrowing it down to one area. We've just had our poppy collections. I wonder how challenging or successful that might have been this year had there not been cash. Which then brings me on to sort of a more parochial view, which is, as I'm sure, you know, members do generally, I engage with a lot of small fundraising events, be they coffee mornings, bingo, you name it, and it all involves cash. You know, we are supporting such events with our Norfolk Community Fund now, which is fantastic. It's helped bring support the communities, put ideas and concepts together, particularly you know, around loneliness and isolation. And again, in those small communities, that cash and that fundraising and that 50p in the cup towards a cup of coffee is helping sustain, it's helping to promote. And it's very important in the rural communities especially. Understand there's a mixed bag with retailers, but again, if we're looking at some retailers who are now making a charge for small payments on the card. So if you're in a situation where you've only got a card and you've got a £2.50 purchase, you're probably finding yourself paying a further 50p for the privilege of making that purchase. So we've got to protect those people. So fantastic, Chair, fantastic team, well done. I just would like to come back at the end, Chair, if I may. I'll shut up now and let someone else have a chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any thoughts? It's quite an expansive piece of work, so there's a lot in there. David.
Thank you, Chairman. I too am on the Task and Finish Committee here, and like Chris said, I don't think we realised what we'd got ourselves involved in. The report is, I don't know how many times greater than in depth and in providing information which we really do need to make some sort of headway with getting cash back in. I might have mentioned this in this committee before. I've mentioned it in others, but when in Heatherset, when Tesco's Express shut down for 2 months with their ATM for refurbishing, the local post office in the library was quite overcome with the people coming in asking for cash. Once the word got round they could get it there, it was quite remarkable. So it does prove that cash really is a necessary requirement. I was also interested in the report here of the age range. Was 18 to 25 used a lot of cash, 25 to 75 not so much, over 75 a lot more cash because supposedly they or we do not know how to use a computer, but there you go. But no, it really has opened my eyes tremendously from what we got involved in. Thank you very much, Chris, for that. It's great info. So all all go for it and see what we can come up with.
And you support our recommendations to Cabinet that are in there? That
Oh, bloody! Oh, yes.
things to do.
Yeah, no, okay, yeah, certainly do.
Okay. Any more? Rob and then Catherine, please.
Thank you, Chair. It was actually interesting, really interesting for me to read this report because I am actually guilty of someone who doesn't use cash. So it was really interesting to actually realise and appreciate and actually think about it, the impact that it does have on people in the community. I think I've only been to a cash machine twice this year. I don't even carry bank cards, which has got me in a bit of a bother. I do everything through my phone. So it's been really interesting. And when you delve down into some of these figures, though, I think you actually realise how quickly this change has happened. So, for example, if you look at the amount of cash withdrawals broken down into the different areas, I was astonished to see Norwich. So the reduction over 5 years of cash being taken out, 43%. That is amazing. And I think it's brilliant that we've done this report. And I think it's good that we know and appreciate the issues that our residents are facing. But at the same time, there does appear to be an inevitable move to a cashless society. And so I believe that our recommendations, the third of which, seeking external funding to expand Norfolk County Council's tech skills and life programmes, providing people that preventing digital exclusion, is very important when you look at these figures. I'm also interested in the actual discrepancy between areas like Kings Lynn and West Norfolk, only a 28% reduction compared to that huge reduction in Norwich. So we also have to be really mindful about how we have different community needs, different age populations in our county. So, yeah, thanks.
Good. Sorry, I'm looking who we got. It's Catherine.
Yes, I'm very grateful for this report and very supportive of the conclusions. I think that it's interesting the schedule of when the reduction in cash happened. And obviously there was a huge increase in digital capability during the COVID crisis. People learnt to use a computer and to use Zoom and all sorts of things. But it isn't necessarily beneficial for everybody to be always behind a screen and not actually meeting people in person and ordering food and goods in from outside but not getting out of the house. So I think that it's that we shouldn't think that the main project should be to get everybody, I mean, yes, get them digitally included, but that's not actually a good way forward in terms of saying, oh, yeah, let's move towards a cashless society. And I think that we should be very wary of any such thing because it increases isolation. Also, we've seen a number of situations with cybercrime and international cybercrime and various kinds of catastrophes which make digital transactions impossible and shut people out of their bank accounts and all sorts of other things that make it us extremely vulnerable and the whole country very insecure if we build up total reliance on digital transactions. So it seems to me that retaining cash has a national security aspect as well as inclusion. Oh, and also I wanted to mention situations of domestic abuse, which is also really important, that people should be able to keep hold of their own cash and when they're in abusive relationships.
You make some good points about the people getting out rather than just sitting and doing it. I mean, you can order your breakfast delivered now, which I can't understand at all. Porridge is sufficient. And mentioned other things. So the Spain and Portugal outage, where the whole country was down for a while, and that sparked me to think I need to have a little pot of money just in case GB does it. I won't tell you where it is, but that struck me straight away that I might be in that problem. And my wife turned up at a garage, luckily saw the sign cash only, because their system was down. And she went to the next one and their system was down. So she was driving on fumes. So some really good points, Catherine. Anybody else? David and then Chrissy.
Thank you, John. Looking at the value of cash withdrawals on page 86 as we're looking at it, it looks like the value of the withdrawals flatlined over the last 4 or 5 years to between 100 and 150 million, depending on district. But you also referred, and I saw in the report, there's a fairly even distribution of post offices. Now, I think we can expect the clearing banks will keep closing branches, but obviously you've got people like Tesco providing cash. Are we saying that, given what looks like a almost predictable level of cash withdrawal, that we've got sufficient infrastructure as is now to cope with that continuing level of cash withdrawal?
Roberta?
So in the sort of detail of the report, we also break down the sort of number of post offices across Norfolk. So I think it says about 183 at the moment, but where they're concentrated as well. So there's a fairly even spread of post offices, but banking hubs are concentrated, and ATMs as well in sort of more high streets or urban areas. So we actually feel that there needs to be more provision for access to cash within post offices. And the other thing to remember about post offices, not all of them are open every day of the week, and some for certain times of the day. So that's a consideration as well. I don't know if my colleague wants to add anything more to that.
Yes, the only thing I would add to that is the post office framework, I think, goes to 2030 to provide the cash services they do currently. So we need to keep a watching brief on a framework that will come after that, and in the context of closing banks and hopefully increasing banking hubs, but the rate of banking hubs coming to the market is probably fair to say is not as quick as everybody thought it would be because of everything involved with doing so.
Is that because it's difficult to start? Well, the paperwork, the red tape.
There is red tape, but if one bank exists in a town, you can't have a banking hub. So if you're a customer of that bank in that town, you're extremely well served, but everybody else isn't. And it's only when the last one goes can the process start to go for a banking hub.
Is there a minimum? I've got some villages in my area that are very small, hamlets rather than villages. Is there a level at which a banking hub won't open?
I think there is size, but I'd have to check on that.
Yeah, because that's another thing.
It would be a relevant size on population.
When you say if there's a bank in town, well, most of our villages don't have a bank in town. They just don't have a bank. They have to go elsewhere. So I then worried that, some of my tiny ones would not be able to have even that.
That's where the post office network does come in.
Any more comments, thoughts? Chris, you've got to do the final say.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to agree and disagree with something that Rob said and pick up on something that Catherine said, which was really the security element of this, the digital security, which I think is a real concern. And I think that sort of crime will become more sophisticated, particularly if we're cornered into only using digital currencies. You alluded to the outage in Spain. You were very gentle in your report there. I had friends who were there at the time, and they said there was outright panic in places, unable to buy food, etc., etc. So we really do need to bear these things in mind. But coming back to sort of Rob's point, this point 3 sits a little bit uneasy with me in this paper. We're trying to encourage and maintain and foster cash, but at the same time we're suggesting that what we want to do is increase and improve digital skills. So, in brackets, people don't need to use cash. And my concern is, it may be a conspiracy theory, but my concern is that we're being steered towards this for the convenience of others, for the convenience of governments, governance, for the convenience of control, and for the convenience of large factors in the market. And I think for that reason, it's not just serving our local communities in terms of the cash they use on a daily basis, it's protecting them as well. And that's why I was very pleased to see point 1, this letter that we can nail our colours to the mast on this. It might not go as far as I personally would like, but I think that's important. But point 3, I fully agree with Rob that every opportunity to upskill and for the people that want and need and are able to is great, but I'm not sure it should be attached in this particular document. Thank you.
Chrissy, I've missed you. Do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, well, even in places like Norwich, I mean, it was bedlam one day because one of the supermarkets, their tech went down. I should have known because there's long queues outside the cash points, and I did wonder what that's about. But suddenly, if there's no cash about now, the panic that creates. I was in a cafe the other day, and that went down. I was literally had to lend someone some money because they didn't have money for coffee. Do you know what I mean? So the chippies usually are cash. A lot of people still need to go around with cash because if you live in a disadvantaged place like Marlcross, you can't necessarily afford a computer or anything else like that, so you do need cash. So even in Norwich, the amount of chaos when suddenly people have to turn to cash is amazing and proves the fact that I always have some cash with me, no matter what, because you just never know if tech is wonderful when it's working, but it doesn't always work. So even in places like Norwich, it can cause chaos if something goes down because everyone's got so used since COVID of using the card for everything or their phone.
Yeah.
So,
Catherine.
makes the hard work.
Yes, I agree that the third point sits uncomfortably, given that, that the point of this is that we might actually not want to move in the direction of I mean, obviously we want to move in the direction of everybody who feels the need of using digital tools, to be able to use digital tools, but that's not part of this project. Part of this project is to say, even those of us who are happy using digital tools might actually need to say, do not use digital tools for these things. Another thing that hasn't been mentioned is the data surveillance that banks get from knowing your every transaction and the way in which targeted advertising and information about your buying habits can be useful to also to supermarkets using their loyalty cards and so on. So there are a number of things that are being done that are benefiting not us, but the commercial enterprises that want our information. So I think that for this report, it might be better to clarify that third point to say that while we encourage education in digital literacy, that is not part of this project.
So what we're saying is it is important, but in terms of the cash system that we're looking at, it's not the major
It's not a
factor.
substitute for cash.
Yeah.
And digital literacy needs to include understanding who's getting your data and how when you're online.
Yeah, I mean, you only have to pause on Facebook and you know the next 5 items, the algorithm's going to come after you. You know, we've got that everywhere. Can we add that to
so it's that we're focusing on recommendations 1 and 2
Yeah.
to Cabinet and not 3.
Yeah. Although we could say 3, but we're more interested in people having cash than learning the mechanics. There was, I think, Margaret Dewsbury had a Silver Surfer Club in the parish council a few years ago, and that was helping people to how to do your phone, how to do your computer. I don't know whether it's still going, but that's a very valuable lesson, I think, people learning. Sorry, Catherine.
Maybe we should add to that
That we're all Silver Surfers.
that part of the digital training should be in understanding the risks.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Any more thoughts and comments? Sorry, Roberta.
Completely accept the comments on point 3 from Councillor Rowell as well. But I just wanted to add, I think the context behind that was also about digital exclusion. So, you know, that we've piloted Tech Skills for Life in a number of rural areas, and particularly with rural areas with elderly populations or people who might not be able to get out and about as easily. Just having some basic literacy on how to access a computer to pay some bills as well is quite useful. So
Yeah.
appreciate we need to edit that recommendation.
And people being able to open the bus app and know when
Exactly,
the next bus
yeah.
is coming up, which I've done for several people. We're happy in contact with that. So, sorry, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I thought I'd just listen to, and it pains me, Rebecca, I apologise, listen to the other comments. I still think that sits awkwardly in this paper, however you play around with it. It's in the wrong box. This should come forward in another document, I believe, and it detracts, in my view, from the original purpose of this work. I accept the points, they're all very valid,
Yeah.
but they're just out of place in this document.
Yeah. So my point would be, just as an interest, that I think we should put it in with the conditions that we've just said, and we also ought to raise that at a separate place about digital for residents, upskilling people in their digital things. So do it in both places, rather than say, oh, we don't want it here because it doesn't really meet with our cash aims. But if we put those amendments in, do you think we could? So should we take a vote on that? So number 3, I suppose the vote is, do we include number 3? It is 3, isn't it? Yeah, 3. With amendments, or do we leave it and take it to another place? So all those in favour of putting it in with the amendments, raise your hand. Looks like 4. All those who don't want it in the... So that's carried. Number 3 is gone. So in that case, the recommendations are 1 and 2. We're all happy with 1 and 2. Yep. I don't think we need to. I think everybody agrees on that. So now we need to go on to the forward work programme. And Tristan's going to help me with this.
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, I'm afraid I need to ask committee to do a bit of a governance tidy-up exercise with me ahead of Christmas, just so we've got a few things tightened down. So the first thing is you'll have the work programme in front of you as Appendix A to this report. First question was to have a look at that, please, for January and March. Those are looking to be quite busy meetings. And I would take a steer from committee on where we feel a member briefing could suffice instead of an item coming to committee. Likewise, if we feel that there's an item that's perhaps not as urgent, if that could be deferred to a future meeting, I'd look for a steer on that so that we can get the meetings to the desired 2 to 3 that we'd like to look at as a committee. And that was obviously set based on the desire of committee back in July's work programming meeting. So first I'd look to that steer, what to prioritise. Just to flag as well that I believe the National Strategic Infrastructure Delivery Plan could move based on what comes out of discussions in the organisation. My second ask of you today is to have a look at the Appendix B, which is the member working groups. Obviously, this task and finish group that we've just heard from in the cash options has done a great deal of work and has produced this substantial report for us. As part of the new governance arrangements, I'm asking committee to consider the member groups that fit under its remit, particularly those that are task and finish, and come to a resolution on whether or not we believe these groups have fulfilled their function or whether there's more they need to do. So that would be another item for committee to come back to me with comments on, please.
Do you want them now or members to come back to you?
Now would be helpful in terms of steers. Yeah, if you would like to circulate comments afterward as well, that is helpful.
So January, we've got parking restrictions, and we're inviting Sarah Taylor, the PCC, to come, who's got quite a background in road safety. Environmental policy strategy for pre-scrutiny, the bus passenger services ambitions and outcomes, although as we heard from Andrew, that's going to go into the remit of the mayor as of next year. And then the Norfolk Strategic Infrastructure Delivery Plan, which could, as Tristan said, be moved. Are we content with those, or do we want to move that last one? Barry, you're looking serious. No? So we're fine with that. And then March, planned roadworks. We covered that today, didn't we?
We touched on that.
Promoting reduce, reuse, recycle, brown tourist signs, market towns.
Chair, if I could just come back on the January point. So that bus item that we've got on committee, that might be an information piece. So there's a question of whether or not that could be an all-member briefing.
If it is an information piece, and I think everybody would agree, what we need to do is give that information out to all members, not just in this little formal committee room with a few members. Catherine?
It looks to me like something we ought to discuss, doesn't it? I mean, it's about whether the buses are meeting residents' needs and performance on the targets and so on. It seems to me that we ought to scrutinise that.
Yeah, members? Chris?
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Whether we could add into that piece of work, I don't know whether other members have a similar issue where we board other local authorities with different takes on their bus provision, and we certainly have this problem in the West where CAMs have their contractors and their routes and the way that they wish to work, and we have ours, and we find that very often the resident plays piggy in the middle. So is there something we could draw on to inform on that in that area, please?
So is that changing the report or the content of the report?
I think that, yeah, that would be when I go forward to officers to request this report for the committee, I would mention that point and see if that has the support of the committee, if that's something that we could include.
So in that case, what we're doing is we might send it out to members, all members, but we're bringing it to this committee in that month. Yeah. So that's okay with the forward work programme. Appendix B is quite interesting because some have disappeared already. So if we look at the first one, Norwich Western Link. Rob?
Can I be cheeky, Chair?
Of course you
my Liberal Democrat colleague, Sharon Blundell, might be upset to see that she's been listed within the Conservative group there. So just a minor typographical.
Do you know, I hadn't seen that, but I'm going to make a lot of play on that when I see her, that she should jump ship. Yeah. So in the background, this is going to go on. It's still an important issue in Norfolk. And at the moment, there's obviously lots of things going on around it. So that would stay in there. Interesting, the cash for options we've just done. So we have the ability today to say, thank you very much, you've done a great job, bye-bye. Or do we say, we'd like you to have a look in 6 months, a year, at the things that have happened, so you stay open just for that period? Comments on that, members? What do you think? Yeah? Keep it open? 6 months, right. Then Enhanced Partnership Management Board. This is a different organisation. This is not a task and finish group, and we have little or no. So I think
it's more for committee's site. That is, yeah.
Yeah. Long Stratton Bypass. Few people here I know use it, so it's busier than ever, has gone. Yarmouth, Third River Crossing. Thank you, Graham. And then we move on to, Tristan's just going to go through on page 113 and 114.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the final one from me, you'll be pleased to hear, and this is site of the policy framework items that report to the Infrastructure and Development Committee. What committee is being asked to do here is take a look at the policy framework items in Appendix C and particularly consider any items that you might wish to bring forward for review or scrutiny. The only one that I would particularly flag to committee is that we've got moving towards zero waste on there, which hasn't been reviewed in a while, albeit it has been reported to committee annually in the form of the Waste Services Annual Report. I would just flag that one to committee, ask whether there is scope to bring that with the March item on reduce, reuse and recycle that's on the forward work programme.
Seems like a sensible suggestion to put those two together in March, yeah? Okay, so members, you won. You won the over. We were deciding how long the meeting would go. So thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it and all the work you do. Thank you very much.